Welcome to the Masters of Today and Tomorrow, MTT, a podcast focused on spreading valuable frameworks and ideas from the Masters of Today to help you become one of the Masters of Tomorrow. I'm your host, Kevin Liu, an aspiring 16-year-old entrepreneur, developer, and modern-day polymath. Today, we'll be having a legendary guest on the show, Swish Goswami. Swish is a Canadian entrepreneur, author, 3-time TEDx speaker, and investor. He's the current CEO of the audience engagement platform Trufan, which helps brands generate, segment, and activate first-party data. Let's get things started and welcome him onto the show. Hey Swish, how's it going? So tell me a little bit more about yourself and who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Trufan. We're a Toronto-based company of 31 people now. We help brands segment, generate, and activate first and third-party data. We've been lucky to raise about $4.1 million to date, acquire 2 companies, and we have over 600 paying customers, including Netflix, Procter & Gamble, the NBA, and the NFL. Past that, I am a huge basketball fan, a crypto enthusiast, and just, someone that loves movies, both Hollywood and Bollywood movies. I love speaking. I love being on social media and talking about my passions and interests. So that's kind of my alter ego, if you will, is Swish as a CEO and then Swish just as a curious kid, if you will.
Absolutely, that's awesome. You mentioned a little bit more about, like, for example, crypto and blockchain and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about your recent journeys among that. And I know, for example, the recent crypto huge boom.
Yep. Yeah. I got involved in crypto about a year ago, just from reading more about it. I think it finally clicked for me. I remember when it reached $10,000 per Bitcoin in 2016, and I was like, I don't understand this. What is this? And then I think finally I took some time to watch some YouTube videos, talk to people that were really bullish about the space, and I understood whoa, Bitcoin, but overall crypto in general is something that is likely going to affect the future in terms of how we lend money, how we sell goods, how we go about transacting, how we go about storing our money, etc. So I found Bitcoin to be very interesting. I find Ethereum to be more interesting. I'm definitely more bullish about Ethereum than Bitcoin, just because, again, of how undervalued I find Ethereum to be. But I'm also interested, obviously, in the practical applications of Ethereum, like NFTs, for example, that are blowing up right now due to NBA Top Shot, Dapper Labs, everything that they're doing out in Vancouver. Or even looking at the practical applications like decentralized finance and the effect that Ethereum could have on, let's say, borrowing and lending money, or exchanges, or insurance, or mortgages, and being able to decentralize in these industries that have had issues of racism, sexism, misogyny in the past. I think that would be something that is very cool to see.
Absolutely, it's insane. And for example, more so around the idea of centralization and decentralization, how do you view, for example, different companies like Wealthsimple or other just traditional banks just adopting more of these blockchain and crypto and really shying away from traditional norm of wanting it to be decentralized by practice?
I think it's fine. Again, I think the biggest disconnect between crypto and the public right now is just education, right? It's similar to where I was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, right? I just didn't understand it. I didn't know where to buy Bitcoin. It seemed really hard to do so. The fact that Wealthsimple, Robinhood, these platforms have made it easier for people to just engage in terms of buying Bitcoin, buying Ethereum, is great. Again, their fees are ridiculous. So if you are looking to really obtain the asset and do it at a pretty nominal price, you probably should do it on chain. So through a proper crypto exchange like Kraken, or doing it through Binance, or doing it even through Coinbase. So again, Coinbase can be pretty high on fees as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. But again, for someone that's not really in the space, if they just want to engage with crypto, it is becoming easier and easier to do that. There's a Bitcoin ETF recently that came out of Canada. These are good things. I think it's only going to lead to people adopting interest in crypto and in Bitcoin. And the hope is that as that happens, they start to get deeper into it, start to really rally behind it, and we start to see the space explode even more.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just want to probe a little further even still, right? Specifically on the ends of blockchain, the opportunities and things that you can do with that technology is insane. For example, you can apply it to the medical space with medical records. Yep. You can also apply it from underdeveloped countries, for example, land rights usage and stuff like that, which is insane, right?
Yeah.
But for example, specifically on Bitcoin on that end, and stuff for example, tweets from Elon Musk and other huge influential tech leaders right now just causing Bitcoin to just blow up. What do you think is the future of Bitcoin specifically? And do you think that this is just currently just a bubble, right? Where everyone's just currently overhyping things and it's
Yeah.
eventually up.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's a bubble per se. Like, I think the real way to kind of frame it is necessarily just, I think the price is artificially bumped up quite a bit based on just recent events and what's happened. And again, that's good. Like, I think the fact is that like banks are starting to get involved, notable people are starting to get involved, the mainstream media is starting to get involved. This is all good. And it's not something that, again, is likely going to go away, because at the end of the day, Bitcoin provides a practical utility, which is obviously for a lot of these banks, a lot of these companies like Tesla, it's counteracting the fluctuating rate of what the US currency has been doing. And being able to store your money in Bitcoin seems to be a less BS way, like Elon Musk put it, of storing your money than putting your money into USD. So I think that's fine. Again, like in the long run, I agree with you. I think Bitcoin's potential is very much it's something that can be seen even in underdeveloped countries. Like, I think, imagine you're a person that is in Venezuela, right? And the currency fluctuates so dramatically. Like, you might have the money to save up for a house one day and then a week later you don't. That's where I think Bitcoin could be very impactful. I think Bitcoin could also be impactful for people in Africa that don't have a Swift code, that don't have the proper identification to set up a bank account and wire money. For them to be able to partake in the global economy is very hard, but through Bitcoin and doing it digitally, it's something that could be very impressive and impactful. Again, the underlying factor there is that we need to spread internet to places as well. We need to continue to provide high speed internet to people as well. So there is a requirement there. But again, like, the two can go hand in hand and disrupt, I think, a number of emerging countries that need this technology to be able to really provide an escape for poverty for people. So I think that's something that could be really cool. But again, like for if you take a look at Canada and the US, where things are going, I think Bitcoin continues to be a substitute for gold down the road. And I think within 10 years, we'll likely see Bitcoin be that substitute for gold. I think that we'll see it at a 9 trillion, $10 trillion market cap. We'll see it be at around $500,000, $600,000 per coin. And I think that'll be fine, because again, like, it replaces gold, but it does it in a world where the internet rules, right? And it's time for some sort of change when it comes to our unit of storage.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I guess branching away more so away from crypto, I was
Mhm.
actually doing some research. I generally like doing research in advance to some of these recording sessions. And I was absolutely blown away by your LinkedIn profile. There's so much to cover. And if we went through everything, I'm sure we'd be here for hours, right? So what I'm noticing is that from the data points that I've also gathered is that childhood and also a variety of other early experiences play a huge factor and huge role in success later down the line. And I'm curious, like, what was your childhood like and what created the initial spark in entrepreneurship for you?
Yeah, I mean, childhood was great. Like, I was born in Singapore, which was a very clean, beautiful country. My parents very much prioritized us having a well-balanced life growing up. So my brother and I were not only very focused on school initially, but we were also very focused on doing things outside of school. So both of us did debate. Obviously, he's 4.5 years older. He did it before me, so he very much paved the path for me to get into debate. We both played cricket. We both played basketball. I danced as well. I did karate. So there were a number of things that we did outside of school that I think really helped us start to understand what we liked and what we didn't like. I was also a big movie junkie, both, again, Bollywood and Hollywood movies. And the movies that I really latched onto were movies that spoke of a life that could be more meaningful, that could be bigger, that could be grander in its scale. And I find those movies to be attractive because that's the type of lifestyle I wanted to live. Right? I didn't want to live a life where I got a job and I didn't like the job, but I worked at that job until I got married and then continued working until I retired. And then I just waited for death. That wasn't the type of lifestyle I think I wanted to have. I wanted to find a job that excited me every single day, provided challenges to me to be able to grow. I wanted a job that allowed me to open opportunities up into areas that I was very interested in, whether it's basketball, whether it's Bollywood, whether it's crypto, whatever it is, like opening up opportunities, whether it's through speaking or investing or through even working with clients in that space. That's the type of job that I wanted. So again, entrepreneurship wasn't something that I had ticked off at 14 or 15 saying, this is what I want to do. But it was definitely something that as I grew older, I started to realize this is a viable career path. People can actually start a company, they can raise money. And it seems like 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds aren't at disadvantage in this field. It seems like actually the younger you are, the better. I think it's actually worse to be 50, 55 starting a company than 20. So I think the whole thing around, young entrepreneurs and ageism, I think is, it exists, but it's not like as bad as I think as being a senior citizen and starting a company. I think those people have it far worse. But again, going back, like I think that in the process of going to college, thinking like I wanted to be a lawyer, kidding myself about it, and then like working at a startup and really helping Elliot grow Dunk, I started to realize like I had a flair for this. I probably could be good at this. So I decided to take that leap of faith with Trufan, and it's been 3 years ever since, and I haven't looked back.
That's awesome. And like from what I was seeing, you also mentioned like you were having a bunch of variety of connections and experiences with some of the people in your network that you've established and connections you've made, right? And that
Yep.
just show you how like valuable having a really good network is and how that really plays into success. But I just don't really like the word networking per se, right? Like it feels like it's very transactional. But how do you go
Right.
about building really strong relationships and building connections with others?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in first and second year of college, I interviewed people. That was my big thing. I was a LinkedIn campus editor, so I wrote one monthly article on LinkedIn. Again, LinkedIn is my core platform. Even right now, I built a sizable community there, and it's only because I found that platform to be really cool in terms of like when I posted on LinkedIn 5 years ago, 6 years ago. The only people really posting were like scammers that were people looking for a job. There was no in between. There weren't entrepreneurs that were sharing their stories, being vulnerable. That was stuff that came up later. And again, it's not to say that I was the one that like spurred this movement, but I definitely think me, Michaela Alexis, Aaron Orendorff, Josh Fector, all of these guys that came on early as content creators, I think we really started to change people's perspective on LinkedIn, and not only seeing it as a networking platform, a place to like ask for coffee, but a place to genuinely tell your story, share content, informational or even inspirational, and try to build a community. So for me, LinkedIn was that platform. Again, I interviewed people and I found that to be far better than asking for coffee, because asking for coffee, in my opinion, takes time away from someone, versus interviewing them sure does take time for that, takes time away from them, but it provides them something of value right off the bat, right? An article that you write about them, a podcast that you do with them, that you share out to your network. Even if you have 5 or 10 followers, people don't care. 99% of people, I think myself included, love talking about ourselves. And we want to find outlets to do that. And we want to find it through people that are inquisitive, curious, write well, do podcasts well. We want to do it with you guys. So I think that's what I did. And then again, like going forward, the way that I manage my network, I think is far more impressive. I genuinely feel like I'm very good at managing my network. And that what that means is following up with people, checking in on them. It means also just setting up connections with people within my network, right? Like if I feel like two people in my network can really do well together, I just connect them right off the bat, whether it's over Instagram, text, or email. So that's something that I always look out for. It's just making sure that like I'm always trying to be there for people that are around me, in the same way that I obviously expect them to be there for me if I ever need anything, or just to even think about me without me even asking.
Absolutely. That's super awesome. And I guess that also led into a bunch of different opportunities. And you've actually blown up extremely well on LinkedIn specifically. You were even named as the top voice on LinkedIn for 2020, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats, right? But like as opposed to other, for example, like founders or other people that are like specifically on the platform, like what drove you to like also then leverage that to speak on world stages? And then how did those like I guess experiences lead to that? What was the experience on your speaking journeys?
Speaking, I mean, started a lot earlier, right? Because I debated from grade 7 to grade 12. I was on the national team in high school. And that's, why I wanted to be a lawyer. It's because if you're debating at a high level, you either want to be a politician or a lawyer. Politics wasn't something I wanted to do at that time. I feel like the political climate is pretty crazy right now. But in terms of law, it was something that I wanted to pursue initially when I went to college. Obviously, I got out of that and became an entrepreneur, started Trufan, etc. But speaking was something that I already liked doing. So even in my first and second year of college, when I wasn't debating, I was speaking at schools for free, right? And I was talking at schools about high school to university transition, mental health, how to go about finding your passion, because I was told that you have to one singular passion, and that confused me because I'm very passionate about a number of different things, and I wanted to build a lifestyle and a life that factored all of those passions in. So these were the types of things that I love to do. And then obviously after starting Trufan, I started very much talking about three things, whether it was marketing, specifically how to really use your super fans, your top fans, your true fans to market your product or service. talking specifically about entrepreneurship, how to start a company as a student, and how to go about raising money, how to go about hiring a team, etc., finding your first customers. And then I also talked a lot about mental health, right, which is something I continue to talk a lot about even on social media. And I host a weekly Clubhouse room now on mental health with Alan Gannett. Is I love talking about, what does it actually take to be an entrepreneur? What are the sacrifices you have to make? What are kind of the demons you have to face internally on a daily basis, and how do you get over that? And so again, I don't think I am the go-to expert on entrepreneurship. I don't think I'm the go-to expert on marketing or mental health, but I only talk about things that I have experiences with. And again, I just found speaking to be a great outlet for that, because I genuinely love debating. So once I stopped debating, I wanted to find another way to be able to use my voice.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Actually, that leads me into the next question, right? So specifically on the realm of mental health, as an entrepreneur and CEO, you're wearing different multiple hats at all times, and there's different highs and lows. How do you actually stay motivated and consistent? And then how do you actually pace yourself to avoid burning out specifically?
Yeah, it's a great question. I burnt out in the past. I burnt out pretty bad in July of 2020. And it required me to fly back to Calgary and actually be here for about a month. I'm mainly based in Toronto, Canada. Um, and I realized, reflecting on that burnout, that I was just not eating right, not working out, not taking time to talk to friends, family members. I was just like very focused on work, to the point of like just kind of excluding everything that made me happy and only focusing on work and taking all of the burden, stress on myself. So I think number one is just trusting your team. That always helps, right? Like delegating work out, knowing that you're not the best at everything. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have a big ego, big attitude. I think you need to have some level of an ego to have that conviction that this idea is something that needs to be in the world. But I think it's also incredibly important to humble yourself and know that like there are probably people that are better at X than you, and you should hire those people and let them do their job and let them be A players. So that's number one. I think number two is candidly like take time off. Like I think my co-founder Onik does this very well. He's in Vancouver. He goes for a hike almost every weekend. He goes skiing. He takes time off to go to the beach. Like you don't have to be in Vancouver to enjoy nature, right? You could be in Calgary. You could be in Toronto. Go for walks in the evening. Talk to your friends over Zoom. Over the weekend, take a day off. Take your Sunday off. Don't even look at your email or work or whatever, right? So that's something that I liked as well. And then thirdly, I think it's just don't rush into the process of trying to get back into your work. Like a lot of people burn out and then they like build a schedule, take a week off, and then come right back into it. Right. And so for me, like I really didn't want to replicate my mistakes, which meant two things. One, every Sunday now, today, for example, this evening, I'm going to go through my week ahead, and I'm actually going to make sure that every single call that I'm taking is absolutely necessary to take that week, and make sure that I'm not burning out because I'm taking unnecessary calls with people that I need to talk to at this time. The second thing I do is to make sure that I reflect on my previous week and just reflect on how I felt. Did I feel burnt out? Did I feel tired? Did I feel like, I was being underutilized? I had a lot more energy and I didn't use it, and really try to gauge my schedule based on that. So those are the two things that I do now. But again, like the biggest thing I think you can do is just be honest with yourself, and have people around you that have done this, and can really give you good advice, and to not be scared of things like therapy, not be scared about just being open about your struggles, because that's the type of stuff that I think really shows strength. I think going to therapy shows strength. I think going and talking about your issues shows strength. I think talking to your friends and being honest with them shows strength. So I don't see points like that as weaknesses.
Absolutely, right. And I guess like tying into that, there's obviously this conversation about that ideal like work-life balance, or that
Yep.
I guess that constant struggle that you can end up toying with. For example, like there's the one end of just hustling and constantly grinding away, but then there's also the aspect of like maintaining your own health. So what is your balance and how do you actually achieve that? How do you go about that?
Yeah, look, I don't overthink it. I actually feel like a lot of people stress so much about work-life balance, and then inevitably become stressed and don't actually have work-life balance because of that, because they just try for perfection. And again, being an entrepreneur, your schedule is up in the air, right? There's some days where you're going to be free at 2 p.m. There are other days you're going to be free at 10 p.m. So the biggest thing you can do is just not beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up if one day you ended up working like ridiculous hours. Reward yourself, if anything, right? Give yourself a day off if you had a great week and you worked like 16-hour days. Give yourself a day off, reward yourself. Don't beat yourself up and start thinking, if my work-life balance is screwed up, I need to do X, Y, Z. Things are like it's a problem. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. That just wouldn't help. I think the second thing again is just to note that like, the whole idea of work-life balance, in my opinion, is a little bit flawed because it necessitates that work is just very different from your life. And for people like me, again, I see my work as a big part of my life. It's 80% of my week. I genuinely enjoy what I do. I love working with my teammates. I love working on the solution we're putting out to the world, the problem that we're solving. So I don't really disassociate the two together. If anything, like I try to make sure, obviously, that I'm not doing one thing for too long in a day, right? I'm also making sure that I'm not like, beating myself up over things. But like, I want to make sure that I also take time out for other passions of mine, whether it's playing Call of Duty, watching a movie, going for a walk. These are things that I love to do. So I try almost every day to play at least an hour of Call of Duty at night. It's a great way to catch up with friends. It's a great way, obviously, to get my mind off work and be very competitive about something else. And I also, again, love calling, my brother. I love talking to my mom. I'm in Calgary right now, obviously, so it's great to be with her here. That's the type of stuff that I love to take a bit of time off for, especially over the weekends too.
Absolutely, for sure. That can tie into Naval's point of finding work that feels like play, the point where
Yep.
just work just becomes enjoyable, right? I'm curious
Yeah.
as to like where initially that you see the opportunity in the social media space. So for example, like Trufan was birthed in, for example, like 2017 specifically. And then how did that actually lead into just having that idea and then executing it into whatever it is today, essentially?
Yeah. I mean, so I've written articles that extensively go through the early days of Trufan. So it's called Beauty and Chaos, Trufan's first year, on our Medium page. Our company Medium page also has a second year reflection and a third year reflection. So I would definitely implore anyone listening to check those out. I write not only about our successes, but I also talk about our failures, whether it was product delays, failed hires, a trademark violation, really messy brand identity, putting out an affordable pricing plan before we were even ready for it. That's the type of stuff that I talk about very candidly, and kind of solutions that we came up with and how we mitigated some of the problems that came from it. But in terms of like why I started Trufan, I mean, again, before Trufan, I was in New York. I worked for a few months on a project called Dunk with my roommate in New York, Elliot. He had started this big Instagram account. It had about 2.2 million followers on the main account. By the time I left, we had about 21 accounts across Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, totaling up to about 11 million followers. And the biggest thing I noticed is that a lot of brands we worked with for branded deals, really, like whether it was promoting Warner Music or Gatorade or 2K, is a lot of brands were focusing on people that had a fake following, or people that did not have authentic engagement, or people that had fake engagement altogether, right? So I wanted to build a platform that essentially would allow people to focus on their own customers first before looking outside. And let's find all the influential people that use your product on a daily basis. Let's find all the people that are ultra engaged with your brand, that talk about your brand left, right, and center, and mobilize them and appreciate them and activate them. That was the original impetus for Trufan. Again, after our first year, we became a platform that not only showed a brand their top fans, but we showed a brand their competitors' top fans. So competitive intelligence was baked into our product after our second year. And now where we're at, we're not only doing that for third-party data, but we're now doing that for first-party data. So not just relying on Instagram or Twitter data anymore to show you your top fans. We're trying to actually like help you get first-party data, emails, phone numbers, mailing addresses on your top fans, so you can retarget them across multiple channels, whether it's SMS, push notifications, direct mail, email, etc.
That's insane. That's amazing. And I know you just recently celebrated your third birthday of Trufan recently in December, right? But how
In
specifically do
December.
you think like how do you think COVID actually affected Trufan, and how did that pandemic response specifically on your end of the team, along with your clients and customers, and what did that transition process look like?
Yeah, I mean, there were a number of benefits, really, oddly enough. There was a silver lining, I think, with COVID, which was that a lot of brands obviously did, retailers weren't able to go into a store and have physical activations. They needed to activate their fans digitally. So they needed that data first to even know who to activate. And that's where they came to us for that sort of intelligence. I think the harms are just more internally. The harms were more internally, like obviously now we're a remote team, we're not seeing each other in person. There's like new employees on our team that I've never met in person before. And people have their own life, right? And so after they log off of a Zoom call, they have their own life. And I'm a little bit oblivious to that unless I check in on a regular basis. And obviously, there are times that people show up to work and things are bothering them, but it's a little bit hard to know why when you're not, seeing them in person on a daily basis. So maybe that's the only harm of COVID for us, really. It's just on a team management side, it's been a little bit tougher. But I think, again, like one thing we've constantly tried to push is that be honest about whatever it is you're going through. Be upfront with us if you're having a bad day. Be upfront with us if you need a day off. That's not a problem whatsoever. We will make it work. So we really tried to push for not only protecting your physical health, but your mental health during this time. It's like really, really like something that's important to us, especially on a management level.
Absolutely, that's amazing. And specifically around like the ends of team culture, how did that, I guess, also shift? And what were some of, I guess, you mentioned the idea of just like really taking your care of yourself, your health, your well-being, but like what were some of the other core traits, qualities, and like core frameworks that you try to set up in the form of team culture?
Yeah, I mean, honesty and transparency are key, and like that mentions it. Taking time off, protecting your mental health, your physical health is really important. We actually this year instituted a 2-week mandatory vacation policy. So it doesn't matter if you don't want to take a vacation, we will make you take a vacation for 2 weeks at least because we want you to disconnect. And whether it's a vacation in the Maldives, hopefully post COVID, we can do that, or just even going to like a place like a local cottage that's 30 minutes away from where you live. That's what we want you to do. I think past that, again, the team is just very chill. Like what we're looking for generally when we hire people aren't people that are incredibly qualified necessarily, but people that like are very open-minded to learning, and also people that are just genuinely kind. Like they want to help other people. And that's because it's very important during this time where everything is remote to always make sure that people on your team know that if they need something, they can get help. And that's where we're looking for resourceful people that will go out of their way to help people, not only in their department, but outside of their department. So I think we've structured a really good team. And I think, again, it's just because of, finding some really hardworking, kind, talented people, putting them into a situation now where we mobilize them and tell them to be A players, do their thing. We're not trying to step on your toes, but also making sure that we constantly are trying to make sure that they're aligned with where we're trying to go and kind of our vision going forward.
Absolutely, that's amazing. On the end of like the different setbacks along the way, like I've noticed that you started a variety of companies, like successful ventures, and like been a part of very many positions. I'm wondering about the
Yep.
flip side of things, right? What were some of the big
Yep.
mistakes or lessons that you've learned from them, and like what were
Yeah.
some of the lowest points that you end up having along the way?
I mean, I've started a number of things that just didn't work. I tried to start a social media agency in high school called Rafiki Media. It did well initially in like my first year of college, but then it just fell apart mainly because of management issues. Like my co-founder and I weren't, involved on a day-to-day level, and things were being dropped left, right, and center with a new management team. I tried to start an app in my first year of college called Food Share with my best friend Quinn. And that got struck down because of legislation around how to monetize donated food. We wanted to essentially help people get excess and leftover food and then take small commission from that, but you can't even monetize donated food because I think of the Food Donation Act of 1994. I want to say, don't quote me there, but there is a Food Donation Act that prohibits you from making money from donated food. And then I also try to start something called Millennial Council, and I try to find all these smart debaters that I knew both in high school and in college, put them together and have them work on policy papers so that we could send it to policymakers that could hear directly from young people. And that didn't work again because of just scheduling. Like I found all the great young people I wanted to, but they were based all over the world. And it was really hard for us to get on weekly calls because, one person's 5 a.m. is another person's 9 p.m. It was ridiculous. So I think, again, like throughout all of those like kind of initial ideas, I started to discover more about myself. I discovered that I'm really good at coming up with ideas, but execution is what I need to really focus my time on. And I need to find people that can help me with that. And that's where with Trufan, I found someone like Onik, for example, who's my co-founder, who's really good at the execution side and has really helped me also become better at the execution side. Because again, like now we're a team of 31. I don't even know if I see myself as a quote entrepreneur anymore. I see myself more as like a manager, if you will. Because even on a day-to-day level, it's not like I am talking to a client now and getting them over the finish line. That's someone else's job. But in terms of on a high level, making sure everyone's aligned, making sure we constantly hire for areas you need to hire for, fundraising on time, or even being able to set up larger partnerships that could lead to more sales. that takes a lot of execution. And that's where I think, over the last 3-4 years, I've become a lot better at that.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And that's actually insane because like I actually also struggle with the execution side of things. Like I'm actually really great at like planning and mapping out like my ideal visions and stuff like that.
Yep.
Like how do you
Yep.
actually, what were some of the core lessons that you've learned from that process of just working with Anik and learning through some of the ideas surrounding just like getting on the ground and actually making things happen, like the active
Yep.
mindset, and just like creating things?
I think planning is great. I think again, like our biggest focus on the product or sales side was just customer feedback. We realized that the initial idea that we start off a company with is unlikely going to be the idea that we have 3 or 4 years from now, or even the idea that we eventually exit from. Knock on wood, hopefully that happens one day, or IPO. Some sort of liquidation event is obviously what we're looking for. But I think that's number one, is just noting that like customer feedback is really important. So at the end of the day, like planning is great, but like your customer will guide you to where their product needs to be, most likely or not. I think number two, which is really important on the execution front, is setting daily goals as opposed to monthly or yearly goals. So we do that a lot. Like we use a platform called Cohen. We track what we're trying to get done the morning off in terms of our priorities for the day. And then after the day is done, we actually reflect on whether we got those done or not, and we can keep each other accountable. And I just find like that's a lot better than yearly goals, because a lot of people put a yearly goal, but they don't actually track or measure anything towards it. So at least, with a daily goal, you can start to measure whether or not you did it, because it's like, did I do it today? Well, yes or no, and that's it. And you go forward on that basis.
That's awesome. When you're having some of those challenges and different variety of issues that come up, what are some of the frameworks that you use to work through them? And then what are some of the best resources that you consult along the way? Like, is it just mainly your team or is it like a huge variety of things?
A huge variety of things. Like I YouTube a lot. Like, I watch a lot of YouTube videos of people I look up to: Michelle Romanov, Ryan Holmes, Dax De Silva, Michael Hyatt. These are Canadian entrepreneurs that I very much look up to, that I've had the, you know, fortune of being able to meet, bring on as advisors or investors into Trufan. Um, and then past, going after mentors or YouTubing videos, I talk to my team, like you mentioned. Like I talk to my team, and again, like I think the best thing about our team is that when we come together, again, we're very honest about what we think. So like, even if I have an opinion, it's not like everyone around me is going to be like, yeah, we should do that. Like people are very open about being critical of even my views, which I love. And most of the time I find that if we do have a big issue, I love that now I've come to the point where like when I get into meetings, I'm not even talking that much. Like I'm not having to talk that much, right? Like people are just they're getting started. They're going through the flow. They're sharing their ideas. They're bouncing things off each other, and I'm just here to like kind of give you a high level idea of like, okay, that sounds like a pretty good idea, or like maybe we should be cognizant about this, as opposed to leading the whole discussion. So again, I think that's just the benefits of good team culture and having a team that you can trust, that you just know is going to perform well.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Okay. So now this actually leads us into the almost final section of the podcast. So I have a few questions actually. So the first one would be, what is one question that you wish people would ask you more often, but have rarely asked? Is there anything that you're itching to share?
I don't think a lot about that. I think it's maybe just like, you know, like how has the last 5-6 years maybe affected me overall? Like I feel like it's been a crazy journey. Like over the last kind of 5-6 years, I feel like when I won the top 20 under 20 award when I was 17, you know, it's just remarkable to think like how fast time has flown, and just like the learning curve, especially in the last 3 years of building Trufan, has been ridiculous in terms of just like everything that I've learned about the world, everything I've learned about management, entrepreneurship, etc. So yeah, that's been pretty interesting. But yeah, nothing else really. I think I just kind of gave the question and answered it a little bit right there.
That's awesome. Cool, cool. Sounds great. And then if you could have the world just go silent for 5 minutes, and then you could have a billboard or even your voice with that, what would you tell them? And what specifically would you want the message to be ingrained in their heads?
I just, where did everyone go? Like I don't know. I don't think I'd prefer a world like that. I don't want to be dictatorial. I don't want to be the only one speaking about issues. If anything, I genuinely feel like my main skill, especially in debate, was listening. I feel like listening is an underrated skill now more than ever. So if anything, if I had that billboard, I'd probably just say, where did everyone go? I want to listen to you. And go from there, because again, this is the reason I like Clubhouse, is like I can just eat lunch, eat dinner, get into a room, listen to someone talk about aliens, and that's it. Like, whether or not I believe them obviously is up to me, but like it's great just to be able to listen to people. And I don't know if I'd ever wanna be in a world where everyone else was silent.
That's awesome. And then
Yeah.
as well, if time stopped for a year and you had $1 billion, what would you do? And what would be some of the problems that you want to solve? And assuming that you can leverage anybody you want.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's four areas that I'm very passionate about. One of the areas actually I'm going to be announcing something that we're building in a month or two, um, and it's focused around student debt. So I'm really passionate about that issue. Passionate about education, obviously overall, and the project that I've come on as an advisor for, it's something that I'm very excited about. So that'll likely be launched in a month or two, and I'll be talking a lot more about it. The other three areas, if I had $1 billion that I would put money towards, again, I don't think you need to have $1 billion to act on these issues. I think, especially on a local level, you can do your part. But climate change, I think, is number one, right? I think a lot of people need to understand specifically like how screwed up our society has become when it comes to ignoring some of the very real issues that climate change is posing, not only to us, but animals, habitats that we've never interacted with that are being destroyed on a daily basis, and we're not even cognizant of it. I think the second, which stems into that issue, is animal rights. I'm not vegetarian, I'm not a vegan, but obviously, like I'm very much against certain practices, like factory farming, for example, is just ridiculous. How producers treat veal, for example, in terms of locking them away in a cage, not letting them have sunlight so that their meat is more tender. It just sounds backwards to me. It sounds archaic. It sounds like it's from the Stone Age. So practices like that, I would definitely crack down upon. And the third issue that I think is really important to me is racial discrimination. And again, Black Lives Matter is a great movement, but again, if you had $1 billion and you could, spread that message even wider, and more importantly, spread it not just, around focusing on Black people, but also focusing on all cultures for that matter that have faced racial discrimination across the world. Like Muslims, for example, in China right now. Whether it's there's so many social issues. Like I think it's just great if you had $1 billion, find a way to barter deals to be able to try to ensue peace, to try to spread content that ideally is talking specifically about what the problem is, and try to obviously inspire people to make proper change. Again, the reason I like talking about these issues because I don't think you need $1 billion for any one of these issues. I think having $1 billion obviously helps in terms of getting your worldview out and having more people take you seriously. But I think if anything, like on a local level, there's a lot of things that we can do when we audit our own lives to really affect these issues.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And then where do you see yourself in the next 5, 10, 15 years? Because right now you've just been going straight at it with Trufan, and it's been going really well actually from what you've been talking about specifically. And like
Mm-hmm.
your track record
Mm-hmm.
is also insane. You've been like a great speaker, great experiences. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I I kind of want to, you tell me. I think 5, 10 years down the road, obviously, I want to continue to grow Trufan into the biggest company it can be. I love speaking. I love social media. There's a book that I want to get out that was supposed to come out last year, but due to COVID, got pushed back. I'm hosting a few shows right now that I'm hoping will come out as well. One is with Tech Toronto, which is a technology incubator in Toronto that has been doing a lot of great grassroots work to help entrepreneurs during this time. But again, like in 5 years, I mean, I have passions obviously outside of entrepreneurship. Like I told you, big movie junkie. So whether it's maybe doing something around screenwriting or film production or film direction, that's something I would love to look at. And again, down the road, long term, don't know what year. Politics is definitely something I'll get involved with. I don't know if it's whether it's going to be a politician, a campaign manager, a donor. I don't know, what kind of capacity I'm going to be involved in, but definitely know that I want to be involved in politics just based on, my background in debate, my views, why I like spreading them. And so, parts of my worldview that I wished more people shared.
That's awesome. Yo, when I turn to the age of like 18, and if you're running for office, I'm definitely voting for you. You got my vote.
Done.
Sounds
Done. I
good.
appreciate it. I'm going to hold you to
Yeah,
that.
sounds good. Cool. And then what would be some of your final advice that you would give to the audience right now? And then maybe even like some advice that you would give to your 16-year-old self?
Sure. I mean, I think three things. One, don't sweat the small stuff. Being 16, just like being 23, my age is very young. If you double my age right now, I would still be younger than my mom. And it's incredible to think just how long life really is. So don't sweat the small stuff. Try to focus obviously on the opportunities in front of you. Do the best that you can. But especially in a world of social media, I think a lot of people, especially in the younger generation, they tend to compare themselves to other people every single day, and it screws up your mental health when you look at other people and you're like, why am I not doing that? So be grateful for the things that you have, and continue to work hard, and try not to compare yourself to people on social media, especially because, again, social media is designed to only show the good things about people's lives and not necessarily their worries or anxieties or doubts or stress. The second thing, focus on your network. I think having a podcast like this, like, you're way ahead of the game, Kevin. I think just having a podcast is phenomenal because the people that you're going to be able to meet, the stories that you're going to be able to share, the relationships that you're going to make is going to be fantastic. So keep doing that. Whether it's a podcast or if you're listening to this and you're a great writer, write Medium, LinkedIn articles, interview people, share their story on those platforms. Because, again, like, your network is going to be very helpful when it comes to finding a job, getting great investment opportunities, raising money, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the third and final thing is try to really focus on finding, a core group of people around you that really support you. Again, in high school, I felt like I was a social butterfly in the sense of, like, I really jumped around from friend group to friend group. I was very cordial and friendly with everyone, but I didn't really feel like I had maybe a best friend, if you will, like someone that I could just call up at 2 a.m. I mean, obviously, like, most people, in my opinion, should be asleep at 2 a.m., but, like, you know what I mean? Like, someone I could call up and would, talk to me. So that's what I did in college. I found kind of that core group of like 3, 4 people that are my best friends, people that I hold very dear to me. My co-founder Onik is one of those people, and I think just finding those core group of people that really, really love you, that respect you, that are going to be there for you, will really help in terms of just managing your mental health, but more importantly, just feeling supported at all times, even if the internet doesn't support you necessarily.
To actually close off, so this is actually our final really quick rapid fire session. And essentially, we'll be going over 5 core questions. So number 1, what is your favorite book recommendations? And what are some of the awesome thought leaders that you look up to?
Don't read too many books. I remember maybe my favorite book is like Inkheart. It's like a fictional story. So Inkheart, and then maybe from a business book perspective, like in first year of college, I read 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, which was a really good book. Especially chapter 4, which is the last mover advantage, is a great chapter that I think everyone should read. And then what was the other part of the question, sir?
Yeah, what are some other thought leaders that you look up to and just inspired you?
There are a lot of people I look up to. They range obviously in various industries, but people I know, Michelle Romanov, Ryan Holmes, Manny Pata, Michael Hyatt, these are all Canadian entrepreneurs that I look up to, that are incredibly humble and generous with their time. In terms of people I don't know, like Lewis Hamilton, LeBron James, Justin Bieber, like these are guys that I look up to just because of how they've gone through adversity and how they bounced back from it. And just also their competitive mindset, especially Lewis Hamilton. Like, the more and more that I watch videos about him or hear about, people that have talked to him, coached him, being on his team, like, he just has such a different mindset that I think that can inspire a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs that are being very persistent also, right? Like, it's very similar. An athlete and entrepreneur's mindset, I think, is very similar. So yeah, that'd probably be my answer.
Awesome. Number 2, what does your morning and night routine look like? And what does that wind down process look like in your eyes?
I don't have like a clear morning routine. Honestly, I'm the type of person, I don't like getting up too early. So on weekdays, sometimes I like getting up at like 10:30. On weekends, I like getting up at like 12, 1 o'clock even sometimes. Like, that's just my routine. I like sleeping in. I like staying up late though. So I do go to bed pretty late, but yeah, I don't have a morning routine per se. Like, I just get up, eat a banana, maybe take a call, take a shower, and then go about my day from there. I don't meditate. I don't do yoga. I don't eat, drink kombucha or anything like that. In terms of my evening routine, normally if I'm not working, I'm just either gaming, I'm playing cards with my mom, or I went for a walk and I came back, and that's really it. Again, COVID has limited a lot of things that people can do. So if it wasn't COVID, then maybe I'd be, out with friends, or I would be, playing basketball on an outdoor court, indoor court. We were part of a weekly league even before COVID started. But yeah, I mean, right now, obviously, given COVID, like, I'm trying to stay at home and try to make the most out of what I can do here.
That's awesome. Great. Number 3, what are some of the tools that you use to get things done, and how do you optimize for your productivity's sake?
So optimize for productivity, again, every day, the night off, I try to go through my calendar, make sure that the day ahead is planned out properly. Calls that I absolutely need to take are booked in. Calls that I don't need to take, I push off. and just making sure that I clean up my schedule so that I have enough time to eat lunch. I have enough time to eat dinner. I'm not, back to back to back to back, which is what I felt, pre-July when I burnt out. In terms of tools I use, I mean, for the company, we use Slack. We use Cohen to track our progress on a daily and monthly level with our goals. And then I also love using Superhuman. Superhuman has saved me so much time for email. Again, it's only optimized for Gmail right now, so not for Outlook. But Superhuman's been fantastic when it comes to setting up reminders, getting back to people that I haven't emailed, or also scheduling emails in advance and being able to get my work done earlier.
That's awesome. I'll definitely look into Superhuman. It's been
You got it, man. Changed my life. It changed my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, where can people find you online?
Yeah, at Swish on Instagram or Twitter. And then for LinkedIn, Swish Goswami, SWISHGOSWAMI. And if you are on Clubhouse, just at Swish. And hopefully you'll be able to find me. But again, very approachable. I love talking to new people all the time. I love giving my time up to talk to people. Because again, Kevin, 4 or 5 years from now, I just have a feeling you're going to be doing great things like you are right now. So I want to get to know you, and I want to make sure that if there's anything I obviously can do to help you and vice versa, we continue to stay in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and really appreciate all of your time. And thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode on the Masters of Today and Tomorrow podcast. At the end of the day, without all of you listening in, there would be no show, and I really, really appreciate it. Since you stuck to the very end, I just have 3 more things that you might actually be interested in. First of all, if you enjoyed the show, make sure you go on to Apple Podcasts and leave a comment or review directly with your thoughts to let me know what you're thinking. Next, if you know anyone else that might benefit from the show, shoot them a message and share this episode with them. Feel free to also comment or post your top key takeaways on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter with the hashtag MasterInTheMaking. And lastly, for access to all the links, episodes, and additional show notes, make sure you visit our website at www.mtt.world. We might also have some additional goodies there as well, so I'll see you there. Until next time, stay safe and keep working on yourself to become one of the masters of tomorrow.